Alright guys, coming to you from day 3 of the 21-day quarantine. Who knows, it might just go for longer. So I figured that I take this opportunity to share something of both an experience of my own as well as an advisory at the same time, and that is what you need to know before you are taking that first step into buying a premium or high-end bike, something that costs upwards of 4 lakh rupees. It could be new, it could be used.
This video is for you, the first time premium bike buyer. You're probably upgrading from a 200 to 300cc single to something with 2, 3, 4 or more cylinders and over 600cc's. With this video, I hope to get you better prepared for the world of big bikes and share with you my personal experience as a first time big bike owner.
Number 1, be sure about your reasons for buying this bike. It could be because you want a garage queen because you've always wanted X bike. It could be because you're looking to have a track tool if you're fortunate enough to have access to a track. And it could also be because you're looking for a motorcycle that you can take touring and exploring the length and width of the country, maybe even beyond. But be sure that your reasons for buying this bike are clear before you take any further step, including the research for the bike, because it doesn't matter how little or how much you use this particular vehicle, there are going to be a lot of costs associated, not just when you buy the actual bike, but also during the ownership process. And that does not matter whether you're taking out every day, every month, every week, or if you're using it for just a few hundred kilometers or a few thousand. It is an expensive affair, it is an expensive endeavor, so you need to be clear about your reasons as to why it is that you want to get a high-end bike in the first place. Number 2. This is an aspect that I'm going to divide into 2 halves. A, which will be applicable to both new and used premium bike buyers, and B, which will focus more on used bike buyers. So A, if you are looking to buy a premium bike, make sure that you take your time and take in all the effort you can towards the research aspect of it. Now in A, you make your research focus more on the product itself. So once you've zeroed in on the motorcycle that you want, based on what your requirement is, you might have a super sport, a street fighter, ADV tourer, what have you, could be even be a cruiser for that matter. So you make sure that you do all the research you can on the product itself. That means reading and watching all the videos that about the first rides, the comparison reviews, and ownership threads if you can find any details where you can find out information from the owners, where after a few kilometers they can tell you exactly how the experience has been in terms of pros and cons, what they've liked and haven't liked, and if those likes and dislikes are something that will actually be applicable or of any use to you personally. So make sure you get the research about the product, and to a little bit more focus on the used bike aspect of it. Specifically in my case, when I bought the Versys, I had to look out for a few things that are product specific. So for example, the Versys is known to have some kind of issues with the air intake, a certain noise that it makes after a few kilometers, or it'll have potentially some rim damage. This is something that is very common for a lot of high-end bikes. And even issues with the frame. For example, if a bike's been in an accident, it's very easy for you to fix up all the body work because that's just replacement parts. But a frame might take some damage. So in that scenario, what you do is you find a flat road, you ride it at say 40-50 kilometers per hour, let go of the handlebar and see if it's still tracking straight. If there's any kind of issue with the handlebar, with the frame, with the cone set, these are things that you can find out in that situation. So these are the product specific research details that you get into. Point B is going to be focused more on the used bike aspect of it, and that is going to be your research about the listings or ads or owners who are putting these bikes up for sale. That means you find out, number 1, you take a look at how many images that the owner is putting up, how much information is going up in terms of insurance details, maintenance history, kind of riding, and a whole lot of information that's going to be in that aspect. But most importantly, you want to find out why it is that they're selling the bike in the first place. That reason needs to be compelling enough. So that is where you put in a lot of grunt work, a lot of research to find out about the product as well as the people who are selling them. So that makes sure that you have the maximum amount of information before you take that next step, that is potentially going into a showroom or approaching the entity that is selling the motorcycle, and you have the maximum amount of information at your disposal, so you go in as prepared as possible. Number 3, the maintenance cost. How much will a high-end bike cost you to own? I can't give you a kilometer by kilometer breakdown or an annual figure because ultimately it depends on how much you use the bike also. But I can give you one instance of say a Kawasaki versus 650. Now in that case, it is a motorcycle with a service interval of about 6,000 kilometers, and depending on who you go to, you can either have the OEM service center be your option, or there are some experts who are like multi-brand mechanics who work on multiple variety of bikes. These are people with a lot of experience, so they are also quite trustworthy, and there'll be a lot of people who are recommending them over the OEM service center. So ultimately it's your call as to whom you go for. But in the case of the Versus, the service cost is at the very least 5,500 to 6,000 rupees for your most basic service. That will be like an engine oil and oil filter change and a little bit of labor cost, maybe cleaning the bike. And if you get into more detailed expenses, that will come up maybe around the second and third service. Like it did in my case, that cost goes up to anywhere between 10 to 14,000 rupees. So this is something that will include throttle body cleaning, checking up of the brakes, an air filter replacement, a tune-up, and of course smaller things like chain tightening, cleaning, lubing, etc. So these are costs that will come into the picture. So at the very least, your spectrum that you're looking at is somewhere between 6 to 12,000 rupees, and this is per service. Annually, how much it comes up to ultimately depends on how much you ride. It can definitely go a lot higher than that depending on the brand that you opt for. But if it can go lower, it's not going to be by a very large amount. But when it goes up, the sky is the limit. Number 4, the insurance cost. Now, as you'd imagine, if you're spending 6 to 8 lakh rupees on a motorcycle, your insurance cost is also going to be proportionate to it, right? Especially if you want a half decent IDV. So if you're looking at non-zero dip insurance for a 6 to 8 lakh rupee motorcycle, it will cost you anywhere between say 7 to 10,000 rupees, and that cost of course will reduce year after year because of depreciation. If you offer something like zero dip, which I do recommend, that will bump up your premium by a decent amount. So in that situation, you might be looking at between 10 to 14,000. Of course, depends on what IDV you go for and what service provider you're getting it from, what best offer they can give you. There's always room for bargaining even with insurance, so don't worry about that. You can push for it. But the spectrum you're looking at in terms of insurance cost is again between 6 to say 13 to 14,000 rupees, and that varies based on the age of the motorcycle and what kind of valuation you're looking for. But that is an expense that is going to come up annually. Number 5, the accessory cost. Now, a lot of these accessories that you're looking at are not want-based, they are necessities. So something like a crash guard, maybe paddock bobbins, a radiator guard for sure. These are things that you cannot miss out on. And these are also accessories that cost you a lot more when you come to high-end bikes. So for example, if you're looking at a radiator guard for a Versus 650, that will cost you somewhere around 8,000 at the very least. Goes up to 15,000-16,000 if you're looking at the premium brands that are very popular. Same for something like a sump guard. So if you go for somebody locally sourced, it can cost you 8 to 9,000, maybe less if you go and get it fabricated from someone you know. But if you're looking at premium brands again, those things can cost you 20 to 25,000 easy. This is for sump guards, for crash guards. And it seems ridiculous because it really shouldn't cost so much, but essentially these are imported products. These are products with a lot of brand value to them, so they command their price and you have to be okay with paying that if you want to opt for that option. And then again, if you look at further spares, these are things that are not coming into the spectrum of regular maintenance. These are again things that will cost you quite a bit. So if you have rim damage on say a Kawasaki Versus 650 or even a lot of Kawasaki sub 10 lakh rupee motorcycles, the cost of a single rim can cost you 40 to 45,000 rupees. A set of indicators will cost you 6,000 rupees. There are of course some jugaad options and workarounds to this, but this is generally the idea you need to get. And even replacement parts are going to cost a fair bit. Now these replacement parts will include tires, chain and sprocket kits, brake pads, and a lot of things in between. So if you're looking at the Versus, for example, a branded set of new tires can cost you 25 to 30,000 rupees, and the replacement cycle is also shorter, especially if you're looking at the more performance oriented tires. You can maybe push it about 18,000 kilometers, but beyond that it's not really recommended. Then if you look at a new chain and sprocket kit, that will cost you around rupees 12,000. Then the brake pads, a set of 3, again cost you around 11,000 rupees. And you can't get an exact figure as to how often you'll have to replace it, because ultimately, much like it is with the real world fuel economy, a lot of it depends on your personal riding style and kind of uses that you have. But these are expenses you can expect every 16 to 20,000 kilometers. So yeah, even replacement parts beyond the accessories themselves are quite expensive. So that is again another thing that you need to bear in mind. And it's not just the cost, but the replacement cycle that is also a lot quicker than it would be in your more popular 200 to 400cc motorcycle. And the very last thing, but hardly the least, would be for you to adapt your riding style. If you're entering into the premium bike world, the one thing you need to understand is these bikes make you lazy, because overtaking with them is so much quicker, reaching higher speeds with them is so much quicker. But you as a rider need to be prepared and have the ability to control the motorcycle first. Right, you can't constantly depend on your brakes constantly slowing you down if you're riding at very high speeds, you're going for quick spurts all the time. You need to know how to control them, because as fast and responsive as the motorcycle may be, you cannot match up to that immediately, especially if you're used to a slower, lower displacement motorcycle. So you have to be sure that you can control the bike in regular scenarios. That includes managing engine braking, not depending on your brakes too much, being very cautious with your throttle modulation during overtakes, during cornering, while taking on different curves or going at high speeds, being more aware of spotting things in the distance, because these bikes, remember, 80 to 120 kilometers an hour will feel like 40 to 60 on such motorcycles. So you assume that you're doing X speed when you're actually doing X plus 30, 40, right? So you need to be very careful with your responses and make sure that you adapt your riding style and understand both your capabilities and the capabilities of the motorcycle you're riding. So just because it can go fast from the word go, do not start pushing it until you are entirely sure about how good you are at controlling that. Don't get egotistical in this aspect, okay? Do not bring in pride or ego into this, that I've been riding for 10 years, 11 years, of course I can do this. No, it's a new motorcycle. Take your time with it, be patient with it. So make sure that you don't harm yourself, the bike, or anyone else around you. So that was a little bit of a personal experience slash advisory from my side. I hope this video could give you a little bit more enlightenment. If you have any further questions, drop them down in the comment section below. And if you have any suggestions as to what kind of videos you'd like to see from us at Zigwheels in the given scenario that we're in, go ahead and drop them into the comment section as well. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share this video too. For now, stay safe, stay indoors, stay calm, and most importantly, keep your mind occupied and stay productive.